The nominations in the category of Best Screenplay are John Gere for Atlantic City, Colin Welland for Chariots of Fire, Harold Pinter for The French Lieutenant's Woman, and Bill Forsyth for Gregory's Girl. And the winner is Bill Forsyth.
Well, this is the second piece of good news I've had tonight, because Clive Parsons was telling me earlier on that we've only got 3,000 quid to go before we go into profit, and Greg is gone. But this is well, apart from that, I'm speechless, and thanks a lot. I remember having a discussion with my father when I had two letters of acceptance, you know, but one with the Thames and Clyde Film Company and one with an insurance company. And he recommended that the insurance company, in the strength that they were paying more money and it would probably be a more secure thing. But I've kind of, you know, I had a little kind of star in my eye by that time, you know. I remember one of the first things I thought, it was quite an odd thought, I thought, maybe I'll get to meet Alan Wicker. So that was my kind of ambition for a year or two.
What did your mother feel? Was she supportive?
I think both my parents just really decided to let me go and do it. Obviously, it wasn't a sense they kind of gave up the ghost and said, okay, if that's what you wanted to do, let them do it. But I tried to kind of keep them in touch with what I was doing as much as possible. It was quite difficult sometimes to explain, you know, when you're away from home filming, just what it's like. In fact, it was only when my mother came up to visit us on Local Hero. She came up for a weekend, and she said, you know, she sat on the set for a day or two and met Burt Lancaster and all that, and she said, "Oh, this is what you do. I've always wondered what you did, you know." You know, like all these years, and she just had this, you know, vague idea of what I was doing. It was quite odd.
How did you feel about meeting Burt Lancaster?
I think she was quite enjoyed that, you know. Any time she phones me up now, she just says, "How's Burt?"
McIntyre, sir. Pleased to meet you.
You're going to Scotland, McIntyre?
Yes, sir.
You like going home? Like we're going home, eh? The founder of all this was a Scot, Alexander Knox. No, that's not him. That's my father. He bought out Knox in 1912. Would have been handy if he thought to change the company name at the same time, but... Well, anyway, you're going to Scotland. The old country. Hey, McIntyre.
Yes, sir.
Virgo is well up this time of the year.
Sir?
I'm talking about the sky, McIntyre. The constellation of Virgo is very prominent in the sky right now, in Scotland. I want you to keep an eye on Virgo for me. Will you do that?
Oh, sure.
I was born in the White Inch, near the Clyde, and we stayed there until I was about 5. And then they made the Clyde Tunnel, and that involved taking our street away, so we moved to further out west. And these days it was practically countryside, Knightswood, Blairdardy. The hill where Drumchapel is now, that was green fields and farms, and there was little you know, Roman ruins and things like that. It was amazing. The 15 bus stopped at Knightswood these days. That was the furthest corporation bus went. Well, no, the 19 went to Clydebank, but yeah, the 19 went to Clydebank, just south of Drumchapel. Initially, I went to school in White Inch, and then later on to Knightswood. When we moved to Knightswood, I went to Knightswood Secondary, Knightswood College of Knowledge, as we called it. We had a flag with just 3 Ks on it, which we used to stick up in gasometers and things when we went in school camps, you know. I remember in Melrose, they thought it was the Ku Klux Klan had come, and it was only Knightsford College of Knowledge. So we got into trouble for that.
What did you do when you left school?
I got a job. I was very lucky. I got a job with a film company. In fact, I was still at school, and I was playing at Canny. I stayed at school until I got a job and then just left. In fact, I'd had one or two false starts. I'd left school and gone back, and the job didn't work out. For 3 weeks, I was a betterware salesman. Then I went back to school. I thought I'd do advanced English rather than sell brushes. So eventually, this job was advertised in the local paper, the Evening Citizen. You know, lads required for a film company, and so I applied for that and went through 1 or 2 interviews and got that job, just as a trainee. It was a very small company. It was called Thames and Clyde, and it was a one-man and a boy company. And the director was Stanley Russell, and he made sponsored films and documentary films. And I spent a year there and learned a great deal from it. And actually, it was there that I became committed to the idea of being a filmmaker, because before then, you know, it hadn't been in my mind. It just seemed like an interesting job.
What made you want to go into it then?
To tell you the truth, I thought there would be money in it. It didn't turn out to be the case, but I thought there must be money in films. As it turned out, there was another job that I went for with an insurance company, and they were paying £7 a week, and Thames and Clyde were paying £5, but I thought I'd take the gamble and that things might improve.
So what did you actually do for your first year?
Well, Stanley taught me how to load a camera and join film. He had his editing room in the house that he lived in, was his office as well. So I loaded cameras and carried lights around and worked in the editing room and ran the projector for him, and got over all the kind of classical mistakes, like sending the wrong can of film to the laboratory, the one that hadn't been exposed. You know, he made me sit and watch 10 minutes worth of black film, which I'd sent off for processing, which hadn't been through the camera. And it was quite a lesson, because he made me sit and watch the 10 minutes while it was black on the screen.
When did you graduate from being a dog's body or a gopher to higher things?
It took a few years to, you know, work through that, and I was an assistant cameraman for a few years, and then eventually I was settled into editing and became an editor of these same kind of films, sponsored films.
I've heard of a film called Waterloo. Can you tell me something about that?
Yeah, it was the second film that I made, an independent film. It wasn't a sponsored film. It's an independent film. And I made it with short ends. The people I worked for at that time, they used to let me keep short ends from any jobs that we did, and they used to let me use the camera that they had at weekends, and so I made it that way. In fact, I got quite skilled at it, because if you're filming a football match, it takes 10 rolls of film to get through a football match. But if you've got a sympathetic cameraman, you can get him to put the camera off and on and do it in 9 rolls, and then you can keep a 400 foot of film all to yourself, you know. So sometimes we used to do that and manage to shoot a football match in 9 rolls, and that would give us a complete fresh roll of film rather than a little short end, you know. So, in fact, at Waterloo, there's one shot which lasted. It was an experimental film. I was just experimenting with film and what I wanted to do with it and all that. And there was one shot in it which was 10 minutes long. It was one complete roll of film because I wanted to experiment with what editing was and what it wasn't. So I was actually trying to edit this shot without cutting, you know, that kind of thing. I was trying to build up a narrative without actually using editing. And it was quite a complicated shot. It started off in my mother's house, and I filmed my grandfather sitting in a chair, and then we moved the camera without cutting it. We moved the camera and took it into a car and travelled a few miles, and then we found a young couple in a park kissing. And I was trying to link, you know, these things, these different things, and there was tunes playing in the car radio as it drove along. It was quite a complex film, and I showed it at one of the Edinburgh festivals. I forget which one it was. But it was the first experience I'd had with an audience, you know, a real audience with anything that I'd done. And there must have been about maybe 200 people walked out during the course of the film. It was really, I was sitting up in the back with my girlfriend, and she, you know, we were just kind of like that, you know, because someone would stand up in the middle of a row, you know, and to go, and rather than kind of let them past everybody else, stand up and go out in front of them, you know. So it's okay, we're just going as well, you know. So at the end of the day, it was only my friends that were kind of peppered in the empty. This was the George Square Theatre. It's quite a big theatre.
555, it seems.
Yeah, and yeah, well, it was about 55 at the end of that show.
How did you feel about that?
I suppose I felt quite, I had been blooded, you know, and I suppose I felt some kind of pride, you know, that, you know, I'd made something that daunted people, you know, because I was a very kind of experimental young man at the time.
What did you do after that?
I think we went for a drink.
Tree Films got started. Now, how did that come about?
Well, what had happened was it was a kind of generation of people like myself had grown up, people who were, you know, I was in my mid-20s by then, and who had worked for, you know, half a dozen years in various capacities, and we were all just wanting to start to do our own thing. And so lots of little groupings happened at that time. You know, there were in fact, three or four film companies kind of emerged in the course of a few months, and we were one of them. That was Tree Films. That was myself and Charlie Gormley and David Lewis. And it's funny how it came about. We had actually decided to form a film cooperative, and there was originally going to be about, I think, 7 or 8 of us, Mike Alexander and Mark Littlewood and Murray Griggle. There was going to be a big bunch of us, and we weren't going to do this little company thing, which we thought was kind of old hat and didn't really work and was divisive, you know. We were going to form this cooperative and pool ideas and everything. So we decided to meet in the, it wasn't the hall, it was the Arlington, just down the road here. So we decided to meet at 8 o'clock and start this cooperative. And by the time 8:30 had come, there was still only 3 of us there. So we said, okay, we'll give them to 9:15. And still nobody turned up. So then at 9 o'clock we said, okay, let's form a company. So the 3 of us formed a company.
And what was the first picture you made for Tree Film?
The first film that we made as Tree Films was called A Place in the Country. The first film that I directed, I can't remember the title of it, but it was about the Western Islands. It was made for the Highland Board.
You also did a film called Tree Country.
Tree Country, yes. I was very fond of that film because I became very interested in trees while I was making it.
What's it about?
It's about forestry. It's about forestry in Scotland, and it discusses, you know, Scotland as a natural tree country, which it is. You know, it's a country that's predisposed to tree growth, and it discusses, you know, the replanting that's taken place since the original forest was cleared over the last 500 or 600 years, and it discusses the replanting that's going on to kind of strike a better balance and a better use of the landscape.
What did you learn from all these films that you began to make?
It was great because you became an expert on whatever you were doing, you know. The tree film, as I say, was very enjoyable because it was a seasonal thing, so I actually spent about 1.5 years making it, and I was always kind of, you know, coming in and out of the country and going and doing odd shots and, you know, seasonal things. And it was very, very enjoyable, and I think I learned quite a lot about trees. I've still got a kind of residual interest in forestry.
Leaving trees to one side, what did you learn about filmmaking?
I don't think I was a very good documentary filmmaker. I think I took things too seriously because I was kind of fascinated with the information that I was learning about a subject like trees. I think I was so keen just to pass on the information I was learning that I was quite prepared to do it in a very uninteresting way, you know. I was quite prepared to have a shot of a tree and say, this tree drinks 90 gallons of water every day, and I thought that was quite fascinating information, but I couldn't think of any way, or at least I couldn't apply myself to want to say it in any filmic way. I was quite happy just to say it, so I think I was quite a kind of didactic, sponsored filmmaker.
Was that what made you turn to writing, and turn to writing Gregory's Girl in particular?
I think it was, yeah, because by that time, I think you can only go so far as a sponsored filmmaker, because you really, no matter how interesting what you're doing is, you really are servicing other people's ideas, you know. And you can do it for so long, and I think I just did it for as long as it was worthwhile doing.
How did Gregory's Girl come about?
It came about because I wanted to work with actors, and I hadn't done that. And I thought that a simple way to get to work with actors would be to start working with young people. So I found out about the Glasgow Youth Theatre, and I went down there one Friday and just said to John Brody, who ran it then, you know, I'm a filmmaker, and I told him what my circumstances were, you know, that I hadn't worked with actors and that I wanted to, and that I had a rough idea for a film about young people in a school, a teenage romance. And he said, well, come down anytime you want, get to know the kids, and you can experiment with ideas and get to know them. And that's, I spent a year and a half doing that.
I mean, when I actually joined the youth theatre, Bill Forsyth was there. It's funny, the very first night I went along to the youth theatre, like the very, very first night, they were rehearsing a scene from Gregory's Girl. Isn't that amazing?
What was the first project you did with Bill?
That sinking feeling. We did that sinking feeling. Well, it's actually, he was actually working on Gregory's Girl. He had the script for Gregory's Girl, but he couldn't, like, get the money together for it. So they did that sinking feeling first. So that was, I suppose it really was the first project.
What was it about?
What, that sinking feeling? Well, it's about unemployed youths in Glasgow. And they decide to make some money by breaking into a sink factory and stealing sinks.
Hey, Andy, your sister will kill you if you get holding her tights.
Well, you did say it was a robbery, didn't you?
Ah, you better watch you don't go too fast. These tights are run resistant. You could break a leg.
Ha-ha.
Let's get back to the tea. Steel sinks, kitchen size. That's all we want. Alec, what floor are the sinks on? The second floor. Third floor. Like, come on.
It took such a long while to find the money to make Gregory's Girl that it took about 2 years to get the money. And in that time, we had lots of frustrations. Like, we came very close to getting money from the BFI at one stage. And it was really out of frustration that we made that sinking feeling, because all the kids were very eager to do something. But we had talked the ideas into the ground, you know, and had the script, and the people knew roughly the characters they were going to play. It was just sheer frustration at not having the money to make the film that I said, well, okay, let's do something which is maybe on a smaller scale and something we can do locally. So we put that sinking feeling together very quickly. I wrote it, I think, in about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we shot it a month or two later. The sinks, that was the ace in the hole, because the film was, it was about a robbery. It was about a robbery in a plumber's warehouse, and the reason it was a plumber's warehouse was because there was a plumber's warehouse right round the corner from the Dolphin Arts Centre. And so in the film, in the plot, that became the kind of mecca for the kids who lived around the area. And the only thing worth kind of breaking into. And they were great. The people who owned the plumber's warehouse, they gave us the run of the place for 2 weekends to film in, and they gave us the use of some substandard stainless steel sinks to use in the robbery. It was great. It was wonderful in there. They opened up the canteen for us and let us spend. We went in on Friday night and came out on Monday morning. And as the first shift was coming in, we were come out bleary-eyed. We were in there all weekend filming.
At the time we did it, we didn't actually think of it as making a film, because it was at weekends we shot it and things like this, you know. They would come down and drag us out the pub to take us to make a film. And it wasn't until we actually saw it on a screen that we thought, oh geez, we've just made a film. We've just made a film. So I don't know. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it as being a performer or anything like that. I was just having a laugh.
One of the things that I noticed when you were working with younger actors was that you tended to use them as types, so to speak. Do you think that's a fair criticism, rather than asking for performances which were unlike themselves?
Oh yes, I mean, I think it's an expediency, and I think it's a good thing to do in a film, is to use people for the kind of characters that they are. Because I'm not really fond of anything that looks like acting in a film. I think it's a kind of English habit that we can do without. So I'm all for kind of naturalism in that way, in whatever I do. And it obviously makes sense to use people for approximately what they are, and then they feel comfortable with what they have to do as well, and they can contribute more as well.
Did he choose you because of the sort of person you are normally, or because of what he thought you could do?
I think it was probably because it was the way I was normally. I would love to be able to say it's because of I thought what I could do, but it's probably because the way I am normally.
How much did that sinking feeling cost to make?
It was about £6,000. And I got lots of deals. The laboratories gave me a 50% discount, and all the food and stuff that we needed was supplied by Mike Coulter, the cameraman, Louise's father, who ran a shop. So he gave us lots of food. And we cheated, and we cut corners in that way. And all the crew worked, for no money, for a percentage of the film, like the kids. So it's still a theoretical thing, but everyone involved in the film has a percentage in it. Unfortunately, it hasn't kind of turned into a lot of money so far. We had an advance from the distributor who picked it up. But hopefully, the foreign sales are just building up now, so maybe in a few months we'll be able to distribute some more money to the people.
Now, the crews were obviously geared up to making Gregory's Girl. What was that like to make? What kind of an experience was that?
Gregory's Girl was, it was fun to make. It was also a relief to make because by that time it was 2.5 years from having the idea and getting actually to do it, So it was a great sense of relief. At one stage, I didn't think I would ever get to make it. In fact, I had kind of, written it off. And it was only after that sinking feeling that it was resurrected again. Because I didn't think there was any chance of doing it, so we made that sinking feeling. And then suddenly 1 or 2 producers were interested in maybe doing a film with me, and so I had that script. But I must confess, by that time I was kind of, it'd been around for so long, I was kind of off the idea. And I thought, well, it's good that I've got a script that I can work on. It's handy, it saves me writing another one. I might as well do it and get it out of the way. But once we were getting into it, I kind of enjoyed doing it, actually.
I feel like a human being again.
Look, I've got to go home. I really enjoyed the walk. You go that way, right, and I'll go this way. See you.
Hold it, Gregory. I thought we were going for chips.
Chips. OK. There you are. 50 pence. Get lots of chips with that. Bye.
Don't be stupid. Come on, you're worse than my dad, and he's old. At least he's getting an excuse for being a prick.
OK. Put your coat on.
Oh, no. Look, come on, Gregory. All I'm asking for is a walk up to the chip shop. I've got a date. I'm going away. And I've just got a funny feeling that something nice might happen up there, so come on!
OK. Walk ahead.
Oh, Gregory, hurry up. We haven't got all night.
Why did David Putnam approach you to write and direct Local Hero?
As I say, we'd been, I'd known him for a year or two by that time, and I don't know.
Had you seen any of your earlier films?
Yes, he'd seen that sinking feeling. I took it down to show to him one very kind of bright-eyed and eager. I took down a print of the film and a script for Gregory's Girl in my briefcase one Saturday and showed him it in a viewing theatre. And he was quite good about that as well, because I was virtually on the way back to the airport, but I still had this blooming script in my briefcase. I didn't have the courage to get it out and give it to him. And he was giving me a lift, and then eventually we were in this street corner saying cheerio, and he said, have you not got a script in for me?
When I saw Bill's first film, That Sinking Feeling, at Edinburgh a few years ago, it seemed to me that there was a talent there behind that film whose natural instinct was to make that type of Capra-esque picture. So I approached him and we discussed various films. He offered me Gregory's Girl, which I was foolish enough to turn down, purely really for the reason that I thought it was a rerun almost of That Sinking Feeling. It didn't represent any particular development. I think I was wrong, I must say. Not just because of the success of the film, but I think I underestimated what he was going to be able to do with it. But we did, from that point on, after That Sinking Feeling, start to develop what turned out to be the Local Hero, from a number of cuttings and a researcher that we got to do some work on local stories involving oil companies in Scotland, with the notion always that it would be, as I say, a Capra-esque comedy, as opposed to a serious film about the oil industry in Scotland.
I hope to make another film in Glasgow sometime this year. It just depends how quickly I can get the script written. So as soon as we're clear in the cutting room, I'm going to, stay at home and write, and hopefully have something ready to shoot this winter.
Any ideas?
Well, yes, it's an idea that I've had since 1973. That I hope at last to be able to make, if I can remember what the initial impulse was. I'll spend a few weeks trying to remember why I wanted to make it in 1973.